But I still had really bad moments of anxiety, depression, some PTSD creeping back in because it was familiar ground. Um, and I think you've got to be honest about that because it isn't all just kind of exercising and playing Scrabble and stuff.
We're obviously coming out the back of the pandemic, and there's been huge numbers of people either being made redundant or losing their jobs, self-employed people not even being able to get furlough money and stuff like that in the UK in particular. Here in Dubai, there isn't such a thing as furlough. You lose your job, you go. You don't have any. There's no private. There's no free healthcare. There's no free schooling. Everything is paid. So there's a lot of people going through a lot of tough stuff right now. You know, men that were providers for their family that now are in situations where they don't know what the future holds. Someone who spent £100,000 training to be a commercial pilot and that now has got no chance to work as a pilot. Just so many stories. You know, when you look at the numbers, they're catastrophic all over the world. Depression is a real thing, and you know, when I was younger, I was born in 1970. When I was younger, it was kind of like if you were feeling down or you were down, it was like, cheer up, come on, shake it off, cheer up, you'll be fine. And I've had my own problems over the years with depression. I believe I'm bipolar. I've never been officially diagnosed, but I believe I am. I've got attention deficit disorder. So I was everything that you described yourself as a kid at school, I was that person. Now, and my motivations, and most of my listeners know this, but my motivation and drive in life came from being bullied at school. Right. And so I was bullied quite badly at school, and ever since, even to this day, not so much, but even to this day, there's me wanting to prove these people wrong and get one up on them. And I met a lot, the three of them that were involved in that, when I was about 21 years old, and I was already doing okay for myself then, and obviously their attitudes changed and they saw that I was doing okay. But that wasn't enough for me. It's like this something built into my brain in some capacity that makes me want to prove to these people how, you know, that you should never have done this to me, or I'm better than you, or I will beat you. Now there's an element of me that's very competitive anyway, so that's probably put together. But I have that, so I'm actually really grateful that I experienced that, because it helped drive me to become the person I am today. So I look at the lockdown and I'm like, right, lockdown, okay, coronavirus, problem, start thinking of solutions. Start thinking of what you have to do to move forward. Start thinking about how you pivot. You know, all of the speaking I do on stage and all of the coaching that I do in companies stopped literally overnight. And so everything went on to Zoom. And so, you know, the first couple of days it was like, oh, this is quite good, isn't it? Like I spoke to you earlier before we started. So I was doing selfies. Look, I'm on Zoom, and so, but I had to start thinking very quickly about how I was gonna continue to create revenue in my business in ways that I wasn't able to before. So I'm lucky. I consider myself lucky, but there's a lot of people out there that the world's coming to an end.
Yeah, it's a very real thing, and we shouldn't be dismissive of anybody's situation. And I suppose that happened to me those 12 years ago. Um, I just woke up in from a coma, and was like, okay, I'm in intensive care. Didn't think about the outside world for a long time. When I left hospital, like 3 months later, I realized my car, which was a Ford Fiesta, had been taken to a compound and scrapped, because obviously the people that towed it didn't know I was in a coma. My apartment was rented. I never got the deposit back, or the upfront bit that I'd given. Most of my items had been stolen or taken by the police as evidence, and my only qualification was a beauty therapist, and my hands were burnt and my face was burnt and I was blind. So I knew I couldn't work in the beauty industry or presenting or modeling, and I hadn't even been successful in presenting and modeling before. So I very much started from the beginning then, and it's really hard, but it is possible to rebuild. But it doesn't mean it's an overnight thing or it's easy. And even now, you know, I'm extremely privileged compared to some people. So when this lockdown happened, I had moments where, you know, I was like, oh great, I get to hang out more with my kids and make bread from scratch and all these kind of lovely middle class things that you get to do in a lockdown. But I still had really bad moments of anxiety, depression, some PTSD creeping back in because it was familiar ground. Um, and I think you've got to be honest about that, because it isn't all just kind of exercising and playing Scrabble and stuff. Like there's very real threats that are hanging over your head of how am I going to provide? How am I going to keep up with my outgoings? Can I reinvent? Can I make a new career at this age and in this position? And I hand on my heart believe yes. I think, you know, the only thing that can't be replaced and the most valuable currency is health. You know, like when everything happened to me, all I thought was, please let me get sight back in just one eye, because that's the game changer in the quality of life. Everything else, God, I'll rebuild it, but I can't do that for my sight, you know. And I even thought in lockdown, when I had some pretty hairy moments of losing clients and contracts, I thought, okay, worst case scenario, we sell this house. Probably won't be able to sell this house because not many people will be buying houses. So maybe we get this house repossessed. We move into a flat. Honestly, the kids would find that so exciting. They wouldn't give a shit. You know, they'd be like, we live in a flat. This is so exciting. We don't have any stairs. We live on one level. And yeah, they'd probably have to leave their school. They probably wouldn't care because kids adapt eventually. And we'd probably start all over again at a completely different level. But so what? Like someone wouldn't have thrown acid in our face, you know. And it sounds really like harsh and crude for me to say that, but until you've nearly died, you won't have that perspective, or until you've lost somebody close to you, you won't have that perspective. And you know, I nearly died 3 times. Okay, first time on the high street, the acid hit me. I assumed he'd thrown petrol and flicked a match because it was so hot. So I thought I was a massive fireball. I thought I was going to die. Second time, when I woke up in ICU in the coma, they said that I wasn't going to live and that I should give video evidence for the police to use in the trial because I'll probably be dead by the time it goes to trial. Third time, a year later, I had all this problem with scar tissue in my esophagus. They went in to do a procedure to tear the scar tissue. They tore the esophagus by accident, and I got emphysema and air went into my heart and into my lungs. And I was already a mum by then, so I thought I was going to die then. Every single time when you nearly meet death, you just think about all the things you didn't do because you didn't believe in yourself, or you thought you had loads of time to get those things done. And at each point when I met that moment, I didn't actually realize I was being given the gift of coming back and doing it all over again. Because most of us, when we meet our maker, we have all those regrets and we don't get to come back. So I actually had this thing where I was like, I've seen everything. I've kind of come out of body, seen it, and I'm coming back to do it all again. I'm not going to obsess over all those things that you don't worry about on your deathbed.